part-time or interim basis.
Wow, I need to make my operations more efficient. I could really use some help.
You should give Sirius a try. Our company had a special project recently, and we hired a temporary COO for just 1 day a week.
This will be perfect for us. How is Sirius spelled?
With a C, C-E-R-I-U-S.
C-E-R-I-U-S. Got it. Janice, you are a lifesaver.
Make the right hire the first time. Cover your company's leadership staffing gap on an interim, temporary, or part-time basis in less than a week. Learn more at SiriusExecutives.com. C-E-R-I-U-S. Executives.com.
All money managers might seem the same, but while some give their clients cookie-cutter portfolios, Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to your goals and needs. Some only call when they have something to sell. Fisher calls regularly, so you stay informed. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. So if you're in or nearing retirement, talk with us and find out why investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments. Clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
As he turned the corner, it hit him. A smell so sweet, orchestral masterpieces could be composed about it. But what could it be? He had to find out. So with his nose leading the way, he wandered towards the paradise. He turned a corner and stopped. What lay before him was the most beautiful sight he could ever have imagined. A new bakery. And to think, he'd never have come across it had he taken the car. Walk, cycle, discover. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
If your old faithful fridge freezer is broken or on the blink again, relax. At AO, we have a huge range jam-packed with the latest technology to keep your weekly favourites fresher than ever. Plus, there's great deals on top brands like Hotpoint and Samsung, with finance options available. AO.com, the online electrical store. AO, let's go! Credit is subject to status, must be over 18. AO Retail Limited is a broker and not a lender. Credit is provided by Secure Trust Bank PLC, trading as V12 Retail Finance.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
The NFL is back on TuneIn.
Throws the ball backside of the end zone, deflected and caught. Touchdown!
With the NFL on TuneIn Premium, hear the home call of every game live all season long. The show begins throughout the month of August with live coverage of every preseason matchup on the schedule. Then, as training camps come to a close, be sure to mark your calendars for NFL Kickoff Weekend, featuring the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears on September 5th. At home or on the go, hear every game of your NFL team on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. The MLB is in full swing.
Looking up, and this one is up and out. A home run.
Swung on and into the air to deep left. That ball is high. That is far. That is gone.
To listen, just search MLB Today on TuneIn Premium so you don't miss a moment of the games on TuneIn.
Summer is officially on. Now let's rock.
Check out TuneIn's music channels like Classic Rock Hits to relive the greatest rock songs from the 70s and 80s. Discover the biggest tunes from artists like Santana,
Got a black magic woman,
Pink Floyd, The Beatles, Guns N' Roses, and many more on Classic Rock Hits.
Search Classic Rock on your TuneIn app to start listening.
This is TuneIn.
I mean, they've got every game that I want to listen to, and you know what? I can't see every single game on my TV. So having that going alongside what I'm watching actually creates a ton of value.
And that is drilled deep to right field. Ball is sucking. Give it a 2-run home run.
And this is TuneIn.
Try, kick out Lowry, up fake, step back, 3, good!
This is TuneIn too.
You know, there's so much at stake in the Sweet 16, the Elite 8. You know, everyone's playing for a Final Four spot.
Why don't you explore TuneIn today? Live sports, news, music, and podcast.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
And thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Taylor Riggs listening, and coming to you live here on a Tuesday afternoon.
Tell me a story, tell me a story, tell me a story.
All right, one of our favorite guests back with us, Vinny Catalano. He is Chief Investment Officer of Redmount Capital Partners, co-founder and member of Adriatic Capital Partners. Vinny, you always do such a good job picking your music. Tell me a story. A lot of great stories out there. A lot of fascinating twists and turns, I feel like, in the market right now. What do you make of it?
Marking time, sideways action. It kind of makes me think of Ernest Hemingway's quote from The Sun Also Rises, which is, how did so-and-so become bankrupt? It was gradually, then suddenly. It's kind of this is what it sort of feels like. If you know the difference between market tops and market bottoms, the thing that you want to be aware of in a market top is this distributional type of action that we seem to be getting of late. Not yet. We're not there. It's not at the breakdown. We haven't crossed moving averages and all of those kind of things. And there were plenty of reasons to be, bullish or bearish. But until the market action does that, the setup phase seems to be where we are right now.
I wonder, we sit here 24 hours ago and we talk about trade tensions, and every sector is down 1%. The major average is off anywhere from 1 to 1.5%. And then you come in 24 hours later and all it takes is one tweet to turn things around, and now we're up 1-2%.
Sure.
Do you get nervous about the strength or the faith in this rally, given it's based, some people would say, not on fundamentals, but on a tweet here or there?
I think a lot of the market is based upon the availability of investable capital that professional investors have, and the absence of alternatives that are there. More money has gone to the alternative space. Jason and I have talked about this before, private equity mainly. But in the public markets, it's a lot like, okay, well, if the money's not being taken out and we don't have this cascading down in values just yet, well, the music's playing and you have to dance, and unfortunately that tends to make bad markets kind of be bad for a longer period of time. I mean, we are, significantly overvalued despite what some say. And so if you use any metric, you're going to come up with an overvalued market, but hey, that's what happens from time to time. Every so many years, this occurs. And then every now and then you got the backstop.
Right.
What's the backstop? It's, Jerome Powell. Hey, you guys need some help over there? Sure, I'll come in.
Right.
And then the market gets bailed out again and again, which I think encourages bad behavior, both economically and from a financial point of view.
Well, let's talk about behavior for a second, because I know one of the things that you think about a lot, and we've talked about before, is sort of the behavioral, the finance aspect to the markets. You've made a study of it. As you look around, especially at a market like this, and I know that this is interesting to Taylor as well, we're all human beings. The market is made up of human beings, and human behavior inevitably creeps in here. what does human behavior look like in a market like this?
Well, the market efficient theory would say au contraire.
Right,
it's
of
not
course.
that way. It's that we're dispassionate. We don't have regret. We're not concerned about other factors, which is complete nonsense. Daniel Kahneman, Erwin Tversky, and others have shown over the years with significant studies that that's not the case. And so, the individual dynamic comes into play. Markets do get overdone. There is regret that's a part of that dynamic. There's a whole range of other behavioral finance issues, heuristics that, frankly, investors really should familiarize themselves with for themselves, and mainly for how institutional investors, who are the market, how they do what they do, how they behave.
Well, this is a treat because this was level 3 portfolio management, CFA, behavioral finance curriculum.
Kind of that stuff. Yeah.
So talk to me just a little bit more about that, because we learn about recency bias, conservatism bias. What would you say is one of the biases most at work right now? Is it overconfidence that we're going to be fine and we'll continue to reach new highs? Is it recency bias? I think about 2008 and get scared and pull back. What force do you see at work most?
I think there's two. One of them is exactly the one that you just mentioned, the first one there, overconfidence. There really is this belief in institutions that, and the belief in the ability of institutional investors to play a game of chicken. They'll stay in the game and they'll be able to, alpha males can, they'll dodge the bullet, they'll swerve the car right at the last second, etc. And that works until it doesn't work. It's, Ernest Hemingway again, gradually and then suddenly. It works until it stops working at that point in time. And that's how we get into trouble time and again. The other one I would go back to is regret. Regret because of the fact that you don't want to be the one that ends up losing. You don't want to be the one that trails. You don't want to be the one that somebody else has succeeded and you haven't. And that leads to, I love it, Doug Cass brings this up all the time, groupthink. Right. Instead of groupthink, it's groupthink. Everybody following one another. Why? Because I'm a money manager. Jason's a money manager. If I do what Jason's doing, I'm likely not to get fired. And I'm likely not to lose clients because where the client's going to go? They're going to go to Jason? Well, he's doing basically the same thing that I am. Unfortunately, that does sound like a cynical perspective. I apologize for that. I believe in being skeptical, not cynical, but geez, after so many years, it just seems like that's the way it kind of plays out.
And so when you see something like protests at the airport in Hong Kong,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So are you able to just look past at that? Even when you have the President of the United States tweeting about it, tweeting about troops amassing at the border, you just look past it.
Tweedledee, tweet. President Tweety Bird can go ahead and tweet all that he wants. Professional investors are concerned about the inputs into the valuation models, not to get too wonky, the discounted cash flow model, CFA.
You could never get too wonky for Taylor. It's literally impossible.
You sold 2 minutes and 27 seconds to go discount cash flow.
Yeah, discounted cash flow. Yeah, exactly. Earnings, interest rates, and the risk factor. And so much of that is subjective, too. And so that becomes a dynamic that becomes very difficult. It's not that hard and fast, dispassionate, no behavioral finance. It's just, we'll plug the numbers in. It's nonsense. Not the way it works.
And do you make sure that you use those valuations, those fundamental valuations and models to protect against some of the regret bias that you were talking about, which is you hold on to your sellers too long because you don't want to get a paper loss. You sell your winners too soon because you want to lock in your gain. And you have to learn that if you're losing, you sell. How does that work in your world?
The way I approach it is I like to look at what the others are doing. It's a lot like being in the room and watching the behavior of the crowd and then try and make a determination from that in terms of how I should behave. John Maynard Keynes' quote about the beauty contest, that sort of thing. That's the way that I approach it with that. As far as the actual decision making, it's a little bit more in the area of where sector tilting I want to be, overweight one sector, underweight another sector. What thematic plays do I want to go with? Cybersecurity, water resources, which ones don't I want to be in? Those kind of things. That's a little bit more with the application of what you're talking about in terms of the decision making. But I'm using it more as far as how the market behavior is functioning and what should I do or not do. Should I follow the crowd, don't follow the crowd? That sort of thing.
All right. Vinny Catalano, we're going to leave it there. Chief Investment Officer at Red Mount Capital Partners, co-founder and member of Adriatic Capital Partners, based in Newport Beach and in New York City. What's better than that? But he's here with us in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio today. Vinny, always great to catch up. All right, coming up, we're going to get a look at the fixed income market, also check in with what's been going on in China, both those protests and the trade war maybe cooling off just a little bit. We're also going to catch up with the CEO of Red Lobster. He's going to be by to give us a sense of what that consumer is buying and eating. You've been listening to Bloomberg Business Week.
No. No. No.
What are you doing?
I don't like any of our preset radio stations. We need a new car.
With the Jaguar E-Pace at $299 a month on personal contract hire, you'll find a reason.
That's better. And it's a Jaguar.
Initial rental £3,588. 48-month term. Subject to status. 8,000 miles per annum. Excess mileage and return conditions apply. No ownership option. Ends 30th of September. Participating retailers only. Jaguar contract hire.
Fancy throwing something different on your barbecue this summer? At Asda, a pack of 2 cod fillets are only £3.19. And a 4-pack of Grower Selection sweet corn cobettes are just £1. Bring it home with Asda. Save money, live better. Selected stores online, subject to availability. Card 260 grams.
Doubletree by Hilton. Hotels that make you feel welcome. Not just hold the door for you, welcome.
After you.
Or bring your bags up, welcome. But a warm chocolate chip cookie when you arrive, welcome. Welcome back. Your favourite room is ready, welcome. Of course your son's Teddy can have his own chair at dinner, welcome. We do all of this every day because we believe to feel welcome is everything. Doubletree by Hilton. Your warm cookie awaits. Book at doubletree.com.
I'm Peter Jones. I've worked with many businesses. They're all different. So why be shoehorned into accounting software that treats all businesses the same? Sage Business Cloud is different. It fits your business's ever-changing needs, like preparing for Making Tax Digital. With Sage, you're good to go. Business is about making wise choices. It's about being Sage.
Be ready for Making Tax Digital. Sign up for a free MTD consultation at sage.com/MTD.
People have always told me I can be a bit wary of modern things.
Very true.
So when Jane suggested selling the house with purple bricks, I weren't happy.
No, you weren't.
You see, I don't like technology. I don't like the internet. I don't like moving house. I don't like their adverts. I don't like purple.
Luckily, I don't listen to him, and our estate agent Emma were perfect. She gave us her actual mobile number. She was always available.
Fine, they were great. Still don't like purple.
Purple bricks. You'll be totally sold.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing services cost extra. See website for more details.
With Rapid Insurance on Vodafone Business, we'll get a replacement phone to you within 4 hours. So if you should...
Oh, no.
Or even... Just get in touch and we'll...
Your replacement phone, sir?
Your phone replaced within 4 hours with our Rapid Insurance. Available on our new and limited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone Business.
Max download upload speeds apply to data. Coverage may vary. Unlimited and rapid terms at vodafone.co.uk/terms.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Bob Moon. Stocks getting some relief from tariff concerns today with the Trump administration's decision to delay some of the 10% import levies it had been planning to avoid harming the holiday shopping season. U.S. stocks halted a 2-day slide, and treasuries have tumbled. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. Right now, the S&P 500 is up 48 points, 1 2/3%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 412 points. That is 1.6%. NASDAQ is higher by 164 points. That is 2.1%. 10-year Treasury prices are down 9/32, the yield up to 1.67%. COMEX gold prices are down 0.33% to 15.12 even the ounce. China is both a key part of Apple's supply chain as well as a major source of its revenue, and the iPhone maker's shares have surged today, up 4.5% at this hour. Retailers also getting a lift from the tariff delay. Best Buy shares up 6.75%. That is the biggest rise in the S&P 500. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, let's do a little Business Week economics now. Alex Harris, bond reporter, here with us, and Yelena Shalecheva, senior U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics. Yelena, what's top of mind for you today?
So obviously what's happening in the markets and what happened just this morning when it was announced that some of the tariffs will be delayed to accommodate the holiday shopping season. So I think, the latest announcement doesn't really alleviate concerns about the trade war. I think uncertainties remain elevated, and that will continue to affect the economy to a certain degree. But one of the most interesting things for me today was the CPI report, actually. We saw the second consecutive 0.3% increase in core CPI, which is unprecedented, actually, in this business cycle. So we see that inflationary pressures are rising, which means the Fed might think, well, maybe it's not the time to cut rates just yet.
Well, and coinciding with the CPI report, and then a full hour later, the tweet about trade means that we got a little bit of a bond sell-off. I'm walking in with my tail between my legs because I came out and was looking for a record low on the 30-year, and basically the opposite has happened. So Alex Harris, you're the bond reporter for Bloomberg News. Are you hearing that this lift in yields today helps take the pressure off of portfolio managers who were this morning saying it just looked very expensive out there?
Honestly, I don't think you should be looking at the outright yields. I think you should look at the curves. And I think, Scott Minerd was just on Bloomberg TV, and he made an excellent point, which is this is a market that's very much driven by fear. I think, yesterday I mentioned that with Asia out, we could see a little bit of a backup here. I don't think this is much of a relief rally, though. And you look at that curve, you look at that 210, we're very close to inverting here. This is a market that's driven by fear. And I've had investors who have been in these markets and trading for 40 plus years saying, I don't even know what's going on. So for me to be able to tell you exactly what's happening, I think I'm like the last person to know. If you have investors for 40 years, you're like, I can't even tell you. But I really think this is very much a fear trade here. And you know what? But it does, for some people, present opportunities. And Scott Minerd said this, and I talked to some front-end managers, portfolio managers who are seeing the same thing, which is there's opportunities here. Treasury bills, actually pretty good. And what we saw today is people coming out and saying, the backup, by 9-10 basis points in those 6 and 12-month bills is very attractive now. And I think that's also why the 52-week, that one-year bill auction went terribly today, because that was an offering. I think the bid was at 178, and why would you do that if in the secondary market you can get purchases for 186, 187? Right. So, there's pockets here, but ultimately, I think it's going to take some time for everything to settle out and people to get a handle on things, because there's just so much fear around the world between Hong Kong, Argentina, Brexit, Europe just being a mess, China, Japan, South Korea. There's just too many issues that you can't focus on one, and I think it's very hard to read this board right now.
Yelena, most important data point we should be looking at over the next few days or so?
I think Thursday will be really key in terms of economic data. We get a bunch of sentiment indicators in terms of business sentiment, and also some activity data on retail sales and industrial production.
Great stuff. Yelena Shalecheva, senior U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics. Alex Harris, bond reporter for Bloomberg. Thank you both. All right, let's bring in Tom Orlik. He is chief economist for Bloomberg Economics, here to discuss, here on the phone, to discuss those protests in Hong Kong. Taylor, they've really captured our attention. Tom, tell us what we should be thinking about at this point and the economic implications here.
So I think the first thing to say about the economic implications is that the Hong Kong economy is extremely poorly positioned to accommodate the blow from these protests. Hong Kong is already growing at just 0.6% a year as a result of the trade war. Now we have these protests, which are basically protests against local fears of an increased lack of autonomy, with Beijing playing a larger role in local politics. And that's closed down the airport. It's clearly disrupting day-to-day life. It's going to impact tourist visitors. It's going to impact consumption. So for Hong Kong, this is going to deal a heavy blow. The larger economic implications, well, they're a bit harder to see. What we'd have to see to start seeing a bigger kind of global impact, I think, is some read across from the Hong Kong protests to the US-China negotiations over the trade war. So far, those issues have been kept pretty separate.
Tom, as we take a look sort of at the long-term implications, because Jason and I, every guest we interview, say this is not a short-term story. This now has become a very long-term story. What is the key data point to you? I hear it's property prices, maybe luxury goods, maybe an impact from the tourism sector. As an economist, what would be the one key data point that you're looking at that would show the first signs of a crack?
So Hong Kong is a major equity market. The Hang Seng is a benchmark index. And, of course, equities around the world have been reeling from trade war bad news. And Hong Kong is really at the center of the trade war. But even taking account of that, we've seen the protests have an additional negative impact on the Hang Seng Index. And so if we're talking about very high frequency gauges, then that's the one that I'd be looking at. Thinking a bit longer term, Taylor, I think what's at stake here, looking at the financial and economic aspects of this rather than the politics, is Hong Kong's status as a global financial center. And of course, that status is underpinned by Hong Kong's international standards of governance and international standards of due process in the legal system, transparency in the markets, and so on. And yes, the protests which are happening right now are going to deal a short-term blow to growth in Hong Kong. The bigger risk, though, is that if we see a kind of creeping erosion of the standards of governance in Hong Kong, that's going to put Hong Kong's status as a global financial center, which is really an asset to Beijing, at risk.
Tom Orlick, Chief Economist for Bloomberg Economics, thank you so much for that context, as always. Breaking news crossing the Bloomberg terminal right now. Facebook paying hundreds of contractors to transcribe users' audio. That is a scoop from Sarah Fryer. We'll bring you more on that as it develops. Coming up, in addition, we will have a visit with the CEO of Red Lobster. He is stopping by to tell us about the health of the consumer and the health of the casual dining market. Taylor?
Well, and Jason, we've talked so much now about late-stage business cycle. Where is the consumer in terms of discretionary spending or cutting back? I think this is a great gauge on sort of the health of the consumer and if they're starting to pull back or not.
Looking forward to that conversation. In the meantime, let's get down to D.C. Martin DeCaro has world and national headlines. Hey, Martin.
Thank you, Jason. A little after 3 a.m. in Hong Kong, and the airport's terminal has been vacated by most of the protesters who caused chaos by barricading entrances with luggage carts, forcing the cancellation of hundreds of flights for a second straight day. The demonstrators clashed with riot police who are armed with pepper spray and swinging batons. Protesters say they plan to return to the airport again today, or that should be Wednesday there. President Trump's tariff roller coaster took a ride in reverse today. Bloomberg's Sean Donnan reports the president decided to delay until mid-December a 10% tariff on Chinese products that are on many holiday shopping shopping lists.
Toys, laptops, smartphones, and some apparel. That seems like a tacit admission that they were a little bit worried about hitting people's Christmas shopping. If you remember, a lot of this list was consumer-focused.
Other tariffs are still set to take effect September 1st. 2 guards who were assigned to watch Jeffrey Epstein at the time when he killed himself in jail have been placed on administrative leave. The warden of the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York's been temporarily reassigned. That's pending the outcome of 2 federal investigations into the accused sex trafficker's suicide. Attorney General William Barr has expressed anger at the fact Epstein was able to hang himself. President Trump's effort to bring jobs back to the United States is showing limited results. Commerce Department data show foreign investment grew at a slower annual pace in the first 2 years of Trump's term than during the Obama presidency. And the nonprofit Reshoring Initiative found companies relocating fewer than 30,000 jobs. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in 120 countries.
Some people believe every day should start with a clean slate. We believe in loading up your slate with all the business information we can find.
U.S. trade officials head to China for their face-to-face talk.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
The stage has been set for the Justice Department to approve the merger of mobile phone carriers.
With Karen Moscow and Nathan Hager.
Does this antitrust probe have broader implications?
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
No. No. No.
What are you doing?
I don't like any of our preset radio stations. Ugh, we need a new car.
With the Jaguar E-Pace at $299 a month on personal contract hire, you'll find a reason.
That's better. And it's a Jaguar.
Initial rental £3,588. 48-month term. Subject to status. 8,000 miles per annum. Excess mileage and return conditions apply. No ownership option. Ends 30th of September. Participating retailers only. Jaguar contract hire.
The sun gently fell below the horizon. Rays of pure gold filled the sky, illuminating the towering structures of the London skyline. What else could Jane do but gaze in awe? She was but a silhouette upon a hill, wrapped up in a spectacle so perfect. No words, oil paintings, or smartphone filters could do it justice. She savoured it. Before hopping back on her bike and riding off, she had to finish her commute home. Walk, cycle, discover. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hello, James from Park News Agents here. The talk of the shop is that this Wednesday, the Lotto jackpot must be won. I knew those trumpet lessons would come in handy. Don't miss it!
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Looking forward to a long, lazy summer? Right now at Vision Express, we've an amazing free sunglasses offer. Free sunglasses when you buy any glasses or contact lens subscription. Pop in and see for yourself. Vision Express. Vision taken seriously. Selected sunglasses only. Prescription sunglass lenses not included but offered at a discounted rate. Terms and conditions apply. See in store for details.
If your old faithful fridge freezer is broken or on the blink again, relax.
At AO, we have a huge range jam-packed with the latest technology to keep your weekly favourites fresher than ever. Plus, there's great deals on top brands like Haier, Bosch and Beko with finance options available. AO.com, the online electrical store. AO, let's go! Credit is subject to status, must be over 18. AO Retail Limited is a broker and not a lender. Credit is provided by Secure Trust Bank PLC, trading as V12 Retail Finance.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Get your summer fiesta started with stations like Latin Hits for the hottest in Latin trap and reggaeton. Or Éxitos Mexicanos for the biggest tunes from banda, norteño, and mariachi. Or Sabor Salsero. Find the right music to relax, unwind, or party this summer season. Search Latin on TuneIn to discover your soundtrack.
Lines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, good day to you. I'm Bob Moon. Call it tariff relief, call it a reprieve, whatever you call it, it lifted stocks today. Let's go straight to the first word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call, and here's Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Bob. That's right. U.S. stocks spiked shortly after the open, after the U.S. delayed tariffs on some Chinese imports until December 15th. Dow's currently up 392 points. S&P's gained 46, while the Nasdaq climbs by 155. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.68%. Small caps are higher by 9 points, and all 11 of the main S&P sectors are in the green, with gains in technology, consumer discretionary, and telecom. Nasdaq Biotech's gained 37. Transports jump 126 points. Semis are up 3%, and the VIX is trading lower by 15%. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, Apple, Intel, and UNH, while only Pfizer fell. In deal news, CBS to merge with Viacom in a $12 billion deal. And in other news, GE rose as the CEO bought $3 million worth of stock yesterday. Also, Fair Isaac plunged intraday after Dow Jones reported that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will have to consider credit score alternatives. Wrapping things up, Tilray reports after the bell. Live from the first breaking news desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Bob?
Thank you, Bill. To hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type SQUAWK on your terminal. Recapping, the S&P 500 up 1.6%, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you, Bob. I'm Taylor Riggs here with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
It wasn't a rock.
I have to say, I did not know what Reggie and Sam were going to pick for the intro music here. Rock Lobster, little B-52s, bringing it in. Kim Loptrup is here with us. He is the CEO of Red Lobster, not Rock Lobster. He's based down in Orlando, Florida, but he's here with us in New York today. Kim, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
And you brought some of your famous biscuits, so
Jason
you're
said he was
sold.
not doing this interview unless biscuits arrive. So thankfully you brought them.
But talk about the business right now, because Taylor and I have been looking forward to this conversation in part because the size and scope of your enterprise gives you such a window into the consumer and his or her habits and willingness to spend money right now. So how are they feeling?
Sure. Actually, the consumer is pretty healthy right now. Red Lobster just celebrated its 5th anniversary as an independent company. We've been making major investments to give consumers what they want today, which is higher quality, greater value, greater convenience, and they want social responsibilities. We've been making sure all of our seafood is traceable, sustainable, and responsibly sourced, and we're at 100% today. We just finished a year in which same restaurant sales were positive. We grew EBITDA very strongly, and we're at the point of opening restaurants again. Our sense is that most consumers are actually really pretty healthy these days, with record low unemployment, and so we're selling lots of Ultimate Feasts and things like that. But at the same time, we recognize there are significant portions of society that are under financial stress, and because of that, we're pursuing what we call a barbell strategy. So we also have weekday wins up to 6 p.m. on weekdays with some incredible meals for $15, including endless shrimp on Mondays. We just introduced some seafood lovers lunches for under $10. So we're working both ends of the barbell, recognizing different consumers are in different places.
One of the things that you touched on was convenience for the consumer. When I think of Red Lobster, frankly, I think of going into a physical store, restaurant, and sitting there. But you've partnered to help bring delivery service to the customer. That was much needed, long awaited, or are you still trying to get ahead of that as the customer anticipates wanting a delivery dinner, perhaps?
Convenience has been the fastest growing. Convenience has been incredibly important to us. In the past year, our off-premise business actually grew 55%, and that's been accelerating throughout the year. The current run rate is even higher. What drove that in the fiscal year that just ended was improving our takeout packaging, improving our website, adding a call center, partnering with Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash. We have also just signed a deal with Postmates, where that'll go live in about a month. We just signed a deal with Easy Cater. At the end of this month, 85% of our system will go live with what we call hybrid delivery, meaning you order on our website, you get delivery via DoorDash, you save $2 to $3 in delivery fees compared to ordering on somebody else's website, and you get credit on My Red Lobster Rewards so you can earn points for free food in the future. We're very excited about that. We're also experimenting, working to open our first ghost kitchen to try a delivery-only unit, and we think that has potential.
Talk to us about sort of the movement toward healthier eating. Seafood obviously is a centerpiece of a lot of people's desire there. And certainly for me personally, it feels like the healthier option. How do you cater to that and make sure you're keeping up with those sorts of wants and needs? Right.
I'm personally very health conscious, and I'm thrilled to see consumers in general becoming more health conscious. I'm pleased that I think we meet that need exceedingly well. Harvard School of Public Health did a meta-study and concluded, and I quote, "Seafood is likely the most important food one can consume for good health."
Interesting.
I believe we've actually just introduced a new line we call Power Bowls that are designed to be the ultimate healthy solution. If you want to eat healthy, I recommend you visit a Red Lobster and order a summer Power Bowl. It's a bunch of superfoods, and you can get your choice of seafood on top of it.
Quickly, we talk about the health of the U.S. consumer. How is the international consumer?
It varies by country. Certainly the U.S. is performing much better than most international markets, but we believe there's still very significant international opportunity. In the past year, we've expanded into China, the Philippines, and Guam, and are off to great starts on all three of those markets.
Who's your biggest competitor?
Red Lobster is an extraordinarily unique concept. It is the only restaurant concept designed specifically to meet the needs, and we say to delight seafood lovers. And we have the highest share of our segment of any restaurant brand in any category. I think part of the beauty of Red Lobster is we are so unique and don't really have any direct national competitors.
All right. You're competing for people's time and their wallet, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Kim Loptrup is the CEO of Red Lobster. She's got a fascinating background. We didn't even get into that across the food and dining industry. You'll have to come back and visit with us. Celebrating the 5th anniversary of Red Lobster's independence. The restaurant goes back to 1968 down in Lakeland, Florida, right outside of Orlando. based down there, but he was here with us in New York today. All right, coming up, we are going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in trade, and we're also going to get into an interesting story about the Cokes. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week here on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. CBS and Viacom have agreed on the terms of a merger. It will be an all-stock transaction valued at $11.7 billion. The newly created media giant will be called Viacom-CBS. American and Chinese trade negotiators spoke by phone, and President Trump says the talks were very productive. The administration will delay tariffs on some Chinese-made products, such as smartphones, that are likely to be in demand around the holidays. Stocks are rallying in the final hour of trading. The Dow Jones Industrials are up 390 points, or 1.5%. The Nasdaq is up 155 points, or 2%. The S&P 500 is up 45 points, or 1.5%. Recession fears are spreading, however. A third of the asset managers surveyed by Bank of America think a global downturn is likely in the next 12 months. Crude oil futures rose to $57.10 a barrel in New York. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Radio.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/.
Fancy throwing something different on your barbecue this summer? At Asda, a pack of 2 cod fillets are only £3.19. And a 4-pack of Grower Selection sweet corn cobettes are just £1. Bring it home with Asda. Save money, live better. Selected stores online, subject to availability. Card 260 grams.
The sun gently fell below the horizon. Rays of pure gold filled the sky, illuminating the towering structures of the London skyline. What else could Jane do but gaze in awe? She was but a silhouette upon a hill, wrapped up in a spectacle so perfect. No words, oil paintings, or smartphone filters could do it justice. She savoured it. Before hopping back on her bike and riding off, she had to finish her commute home. Walk, cycle, discover. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hello, James from Park News Agents here. The talk of the shop is that this Wednesday, the Lotto jackpot must be won. I knew those trumpet lessons would come in handy. Don't miss it.
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
If your old faithful fridge freezer is broken or on the blink again, relax. At AO, we have a huge range jam-packed with the latest technology to keep your weekly favourites fresher than ever. Plus, there's great deals on top brands like Hotpoint and Samsung, with finance options available. AO.com, the online electrical store. AO, let's go! Credit is subject to status, must be over 18. AO Retail Limited is a broker and not a lender. Credit is provided by Secure Trust Bank PLC, trading as V12 Retail Finance.
Soundtrack your summer with the biggest songs climbing the charts and cranking through your car stereo with the windows down on country roads. Stay up to date with the hottest songs in country. Discover the biggest tunes from artists like Carrie Underwood.
Got a pontoon boat with a Yamaha.
Luke Bryan.
Yeah, birds need bees and ice needs whiskey.
Thomas Rhett. And many more on country roads.
Look what God gave us.
Your summer soundtrack is here. Search Country Roads to start listening.
The 2019 MLB season is now playing on TuneIn Premium.
Swinging a line drive up the middle, base hit.
Featuring the home calls for every Major League Baseball team. MLB on TuneIn Premium delivers every exciting play from games around the league. From no-hitters to walk-off home runs. Catch the action all season long. Hear every pitch. Listen to every play live all the way to the MLB World Series. At home or on the road, listen to the MLB on TuneIn Premium.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
This is TuneIn.
I mean, they've got every game that I want to listen to, and you know what? I can't see every single game on my TV. So having that going alongside what I'm watching actually creates a ton of value.
And that is drilled deep to right field. Ball is sucking. Give it a 2-run home run.
And this is TuneIn.
Try, kick out Lowry, up fake, step back, 3, good.
This is TuneIn too.
You know, there's so much at stake in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. You know, everyone's playing for a Final Four spot.
Why don't you explore TuneIn today? Live sports, news, music, and podcast.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Jason Kelly and Taylor Riggs here with you. And Taylor, you know, one of the things I love about putting this show together is sometimes we're talking about delicious biscuits. Sometimes we're talking about trade wars. Other times we're taking you to Wichita, Kansas, and talking to you about the Koch family. We're going to talk about that in just a second.
We are, and I may or may not be on my third Red Lobster biscuit right now.
All right. I think the answer is maybe. All right. In the meantime, let's get to Bob Moon. He's got an update on the trade. Hey, Bob.
Jason, thank you. Stocks are higher in afternoon trading after the Trump administration announced it was delaying the implementation of tariffs on certain goods imported from China. Right now, the S&P 500 is up 44 points. That is 1.5%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has added 386 points, 1.5%. And the NASDAQ is higher by 153 points. That is nearly 2%. 10-year treasuries, the prices are down 10/30 seconds. The yield at 1.68%. COMEX gold prices down 0.25% now at $15.13.30 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 3.75% to $56.98 a barrel. Brent crude higher by 4.5% to $61.23 a barrel. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. CBS Corp agreed to merge with Viacom in an $11.7 billion transaction, capping years of on-again, off-again talks between the U.S. media giants. Right now, CBS shares are up 1.33%. Viacom shares higher by 1.75%. And that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you, Bob. And I'm Taylor Riggs here with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
All right. Well, this is a fascinating story today. It's about the Koch family, and I'm just going to read a line from this story. I'm sorry, Dave Wilson. I am so sorry. I got so distracted by Taylor eating Red Lobster biscuits.
You weren't even paying attention to bad company.
I know,
Good
and I heard
grief,
I know. It's so bad. How are you?
I'm fine.
Tell us about your chart of the day.
I'll tell you, moving on, it's all about momentum. And there's a whole school of thought in the stock market that says if you go for the momentum shares, in other words, the ones that have tended to rise the fastest over time, you'll actually make out okay in the future, so that the body in motion remains in motion kind of idea. And it's one that Ari Wald, who's the chief technical analyst over at Oppenheimer, has espoused. He's been favoring this exchange-traded fund, the ticker MTUM, that favors the stocks with the fastest momentum. It's an MSCI index that it's based on. So what I did is look at the index relative to the S&P 500. And as it turns out, momentum stocks hit a record on Friday. And they've held up okay this week, even amidst the swings that we've seen the last couple of days in relative terms. But it's just interesting to see this movement play out. I mean, that you've been able to stick with the stocks that have, in general, gone up the most, and they've kept going up. In not only in absolute terms, but also in relative terms when you compare them with the broader market. So it is something that gets your attention. It certainly did with Wald. He talked about the signs of resilience in those shares. And if you want to know more, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
I don't know what's worse, that I dissed you or I dissed Bad Company. I mean, that's just terrible. It's so disrespectful on both counts, Dave.
And Paul Rogers and the band are still out there doing it.
They are out there doing it indeed. All right, Dave Wilson, you're going to be back in just a little while with your stock of the day. All right, let's get to this story that I was clearly so excited about. It's about the Koch family. Tom Maloney here with us, with me and Taylor Riggs, watching how the sausage gets made. Tom, tell us about Chase Koch.
Chase Koch is Charles's son. He is 42. He runs a part of the company called Koch Disruptive Technologies, which is sort of a venture capital part of Koch Industries that's been making some of these big tech bets.
And talk to me about the venture into tech, why this is surprising or interesting coming from the Koch brothers.
It's interesting because Koch is really a big old school industrial conglomerate. So, energy, which is something that everybody associates with the Koch brothers, is still a big part of what they do. But there's also forestry products, chemical businesses, ranching, all kinds of stuff. But primarily what they do is turning commodities into useful building blocks for other products.
I mean, it is amazing too, like just the scope of this company, and I feel like we all get so distracted by the political piece. I mean, this is a massively important industrial conglomerate in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and they fly under the radar for a couple of reasons. I think one, they're not publicly traded, they're privately held, so they don't have to report their numbers, and people don't own them, so they don't really care what their numbers are to a certain extent. And two, they don't have a lot of brands. They're making products that go into other building products, things like drywall or gasoline or chemicals. They don't make a lot of consumer products.
Well, I remember when they bought, I think, Georgia Pacific down in Atlanta, and people were like, who? Because when you say Koch in Atlanta, you don't think of KOCH.
Right. But talk to me about the title of this story, which I love so much, which when it comes down to their tech bet, they say, do it or we'll end up in the dumpster. Talk to me about that.
So that's something that Charles said to his senior managers in 2017. It's interesting. We spoke with this reporter, Christopher Leonard, who's got a book coming out, Kochland, I think it came out today actually, who's been looking at the company for about 7 years. And he said in some ways, Koch has always been a tech company. Yeah. Even back in the 70s, they had basements full of computers where they were looking and studying oil prices and trading patterns and how best to run their refineries. So in some ways this is new, but in some ways, Charles has always been very focused on making sure that the company had the best technology around.
And do you get the sense that when they're out investing in these types of areas that the name is any drag?
That's something that I asked a lot of people, and at the end of the day, most of them said no. You would think that you wouldn't associate your typical West Coast software company with wanting to be associated with somebody like the Kochs, but at the end of the day, I guess money talks.
Right. Well, and the access that they have to huge customers and the access they have globally has got to be ultimately attractive.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, the way they talk about this is they can sort of say to these companies, if you want a place where you have really almost unlimited access to resources, but also a place where you can roll out your product to a lot of different types of companies within the Koch conglomerate, then this is the ideal place. Yeah. And also you don't necessarily have to ever think about going public or IPOing. Right. We want you to stay private.
It's a great story, a must-read for sure today on the Bloomberg. Tom Maloney, Koch's massive tech bet, do it or we'll end up in the dumpster. Thanks so much for joining us. He's also got a great story in the magazine this week about Baltimore. Speaking of that general part of the world, let's head down to Washington. Martin DeCaro's there for World National Headlines. Hey, Martin.
All right, Jason, more than 200 flights canceled on Monday, at least 120 today, and as Wednesday unfolds in Hong Kong, it's now a little after 3:30 a.m., one of the world's busiest airports is bracing for more mayhem. That was the sound of riot police briefly clashing with anti-government protesters who barricaded entrances. They beat up two men they believed were undercover Chinese policemen. Protesters say they'll return to the terminal on Wednesday. The airport disruptions mark an escalation of weeks of demonstrations over what many Hong Kong residents see as an erosion of the freedoms promised in 1997 when China took over. Some House Democrats returned to Capitol Hill today to stand alongside victims of gun violence. They called on the Senate to act on gun control legislation immediately. Here's Virginia Congressman Don Beyer.
It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. The House has done its job to save these lives, and now Mitch McConnell needs to do his.
Two House bills are stalled in the Senate. One mandates background checks on all gun purchases. Another extends the time the FBI has to complete background checks. Attorney General William Barr promised action. Today he took it. He reassigned the warden of the federal jail where Jeffrey Epstein died in an apparent suicide. That's pending the outcome of two investigations into what Barr called serious irregularities there. And the Justice Department placed on leave two members of the jail staff who were assigned to watch the accused sex trafficker who hanged himself Saturday. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Martin DeCaro.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich? No. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
All money managers might seem the same, but while some give their clients cookie-cutter portfolios, Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to your goals and needs. Some only call when they have something to sell. Fisher calls regularly, so you stay informed. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. So if you're in or nearing retirement, talk with us and find out why investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments. Clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
Silence the squawk. Find brand new cars ready to drive away today with AutoTrader.
Alexa, call Dave.
Calling Dave.
Yeah.
Guess what?
You got an Amazon Echo Plus from Vodafone for switching to their superfast home broadband, and now you're calling me with it.
Yeah, I did. Switch to Vodafone Unlimited Superfast Home Broadband and get an Amazon Echo Plus on us. Superfast 1 is only £21 a month for pay monthly mobile customers for 18 months, plus $9.99 router fee. Hurry, offer ends 13th of August. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone. Subject to credit check, acceptance and availability. Sequence shortened, Alexa calling to be enabled. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
The sun gently fell below the horizon. Rays of pure gold filled the sky, illuminating the towering structures of the London skyline. What else could Jane do but gaze in awe? She was but a silhouette upon a hill, wrapped up in a spectacle so perfect, no words, oil paintings, or smartphone filters could do it justice. She savoured it. Before hopping back on her bike and riding off, she had to finish her commute home. Walk, cycle, discover. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hello, James from Park News Agents here. The talk of the shop is that this Wednesday, the Lotto jackpot must be won. I knew those trumpet lessons would come in handy. Don't miss it.
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
If your old faithful fridge freezer is broken or on the blink again, relax. At AO, we have a huge range jam-packed with the latest technology to keep your weekly favourites fresher than ever. Plus, there's great deals on top brands like Haier, Bosch and Beko with finance options available. AO.com, the online electrical store. Credit is subject to status. Must be over 18. AO Retail Limited is a broker and not a lender. Credit is provided by Secure Trust Bank PLC, trading as V12 Retail Finance. Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow at TuneIn and always be in the know.
Summer is officially on. Now let's rock.
Check out TuneIn's music channels like Classic Rock Hits to relive the greatest rock songs from the 70s and 80s. Discover the biggest tunes from artists like Santana,
Got a black magic woman.
Pink Floyd, The Beatles, Guns N' Roses, and many more on Classic Rock Hits.
Search Classic Rock on your TuneIn app to start listening.
Live from the TuneIn Studios, I'm Fonseca with your daily sports update. Avicio Garcia had a 2-run home run among his 3 hits, and Matt Duffy had 4 hits and 3 RBI for the Rays, who benefit from a Padres bullpen meltdown in a 10-4 victory Monday night in their first game in San Diego since 2004.
Kevin Kiermaier lifts one in the air to deep right field. Mookie Betts running out of room at the bullpen. It's gone on the first pitch.
For the latest around the league or to find more on TuneIn, search MLB and favorite your favorite team today.
The NFL is back on TuneIn.
Throws the ball backside of the end zone, deflected and caught. Touchdown.
With the NFL on TuneIn Premium, hear the home call of every game live all season long. The show begins throughout the month of August with live coverage of every preseason matchup on the schedule. Then, as training camps come to a close, be sure to mark your calendars for NFL Kickoff Weekend, featuring the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears on September 5th. At home or on the go, hear every game of your NFL team on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, good day to you. I'm Bob Moon. The U.S. delayed tariffs on Chinese goods ranging from cell phones to toys, and that fueled a stock market rally today. The S&P 500 is up 40 points at this hour. That's 1.4%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average adding 359 points. That's 1.4%. The Nasdaq is higher by 145 points. That is 1.8%. 10-year Treasury prices down 11/30 seconds. The yield at 1.68%. COMEX gold prices down by 0.2% to $15.14.30 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude higher by 3.75% to $57 even a barrel. Brent crude is higher by 4.6% to $61.27 a barrel. Before the trade headlines landed, fresh inflation data showed an unexpectedly hot reading, denting arguments for cutting interest rates and flattening the Treasury yield toward inversion. The spread between the 2- and 10-year yields hit the narrowest margin since 2007. And that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
And it is time for the Drive to the Close. Alan Zafran back with us, founding partner and co-CEO of IEQ Capital, joins us on the phone from Foster City, California, Taylor Riggs' home state. Alan, great to have you back with us.
Thank you, Jason, as well as Taylor in California. Great to be on the show.
All right, so got to talk to you about sort of what's going on today, and even over the last couple days, some pretty wild movements in equities broadly defined. You know, a sea of red yesterday, a sea of green today, seemingly all on trade. How do you see this going on, especially as it feels like we're just trading tweet to tweet?
We are trading tweet to tweet, unless we're in Argentina.
Right. Yes. That. Fair point.
You've got mixed signals. The bond market, with yields plummeting, is scaring investors into thinking that a recession is imminent, not just potentially overseas, but even in America. Conversely, we actually still have growth and very low, if not moderate, inflation in America. And the traditional signals that you'd see as a recession looming are not present in the U.S. We've got full employment. We don't have interest rates out of control. It feels as if businesses are still growing earnings. There aren't any debt crises at hand. And so investors are confused what to do in an environment where the bond and stock markets are giving different signals. So in the context of confusion, the volatility increases until such point as fundamentals play out. And for the moment, the fundamentals are arguing that earnings are still growing in America. Interest rates are not competing too aggressively with stocks. And in the absence of evidence that this economy is going to roll over, chances are assets, although more volatile, will continue to work gradually towards the upside until the weight of the evidence shows us otherwise.
Alan, I really like that you brought up both the equity markets and the bond markets. Earlier this morning around the opening bell, we were having a conversation about the dividend yield and then, of course, the bond yields. And given the big sell-off that we've had recently, dividend yields, again, are starting to look more attractive relative to what some would say is a expensive bond market. Would you agree? Are you looking at a rotation into equities from bonds or the reverse?
I think you are seeing a modest rotation into equities. I don't want to overstate that, but what I would highlight is the way you described it is very apt. I can be a buyer of stocks in the U.S. today. I can earn a higher yield than I earned by buying a 10-year Treasury bond, and I get all the theoretical potential upside of growth for the next 10 years, which bonds cannot give me. So investors are looking at that relative yield advantage, and even on a risk-adjusted basis, it's sort of like a free option on the growth of America over the next decade. You're getting paid while you get that growth for 10 years. If you're willing to bear that risk, history plays out in your favor. That's another way of describing what's known as the Fed model, which is just a different way of looking at the same thing. In short, even if you bought a stock market at call it 18 times forward earnings, you're getting about a 5.5% earnings yield on the dollars you put in the stock market versus a little more than 1.7% for a risk-free bond. That's a huge spread. If you look over the last even 20 years, that spread is less than 2%. Now you're getting 3.5%. So equity investors look at that and say, I'm getting very fairly compensated relative to the payment I'm going to get if I buy a conventional bond. As long as I don't think this economy is rolling over, I should feel pretty empowered buying stocks here. That's the bullish argument. The yield differential is compelling to buy stocks currently.
And so what worries you the most for the balance of the year, Alan?
Well, clearly the number one thing is you can't deny the political uncertainties tied to the trade tensions. And if you really break it down, I think when you look at the U.S. and China, there's the short term and the long run. I think the trade tensions are significant because the uncertainty causes delays in CEOs from making investment decisions, which in turn slows down the willingness to hire employees, leads to confusion about what goods and services to ship and where, and it raises costs on consumers. That's all very bad economically, and it slows down earnings growth. The reason I say there's short-term and long run is in the short run, which I'm going to define as the next year and a half up until the November election of 2020, the current administration and frankly all politicians do have an incentive to get the economy in good shape in front of the election, and so there are short-term incentives to find a mechanism to come to an amicable solution with China. So I actually believe, whether you believe it's substantive or superficial, there will be a mechanism for the U.S. in its efforts to stabilize the economy in front of the election cycle, and for China that can't afford to have its economy slow down too much. There will be some mechanism to come up with some agreement. The reason I say long-term is it is in fact true. We have an intractable separation. China is aiming to become a second world power from the U.S. The U.S. is not going to willingly give it away, but it's a little bit of inevitability. If there's 1.5 billion people in China and it's growing rapidly, it will eventually happen.
Alan,
that's the long-term challenge there.
Quickly here, for the first time in my career, I've heard murmurs of negative rates here in the U.S. Fold that over into the financials, which are the second worst performer in the S&P on a month to date. Without sounding hysterical, are U.S. financials at risk of facing a European-like scenario with negative rates overseas?
I would absolutely say rates, the pressures are yields to drop lower and lower. I would absolutely say that's the case, and it will impair their profitability. But U.S. financial system is materially better positioned than the European system. It's much stronger in capitalization, and I don't believe will be as impaired as the European financial system is. But the profitability of those institutions will be hurt if yields continue to come down.
Great stuff, as always. Alan Zafran is founding partner and co-CEO of IEQ Capital. He joined us on the phone from Foster City, California. Well, coming up, we're going to take you into the close of trading here in the U.S. A green day here. Stocks not hitting their highs right now, not quite as high as they were, but still very much in the green. The NASDAQ, the S&P, and the Dow all up more than 1%. Tech leading the way, as it tends to do in these rallies, up 1.9%. Maybe some enthusiasm over those lack of tariffs. So we'll talk about that and much more. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Taylor Riggs here with you on Bloomberg Radio.
Silence the squawk. Find brand new cars ready to drive away today with Auto Trader.
As he turned the corner, it hit him. A smell so sweet, orchestral masterpieces could be composed about it. But what could it be? He had to find out. So with his nose leading the way, he wandered towards the paradise. He turned a corner and stopped. What lay before him was the most beautiful sight he could ever have imagined. A new bakery. And to think, he'd never have come across it had he taken the car. Walk, cycle, discover. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hello, James from Park News Agents here. The talk of the shop is that this Wednesday, the Lotto jackpot must be won. Oh, I knew those trumpet lessons would come in handy. Don't miss it!
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
The NFL is back on TuneIn.
Throws a ball backside of the end zone, deflected and caught! Touchdown!
With the NFL on TuneIn Premium, hear the home call of every game live all season long. The show begins throughout the month of August with live coverage of every preseason matchup on the schedule. Then, as training camps come to a close, be sure to mark your calendars for NFL Kickoff Weekend, featuring the Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears on September 5th. At home or on the go, hear every game of your NFL team on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. The MLB is in full swing.
Looking up, and this one is up and out. A home run.
Swung on and into the air to deep left. That ball is high. That is far. That is gone.
To listen, just search MLB Today on TuneIn Premium so you don't miss a moment of the games on TuneIn.
Get your summer fiesta started with stations like Latin Hits for the hottest in Latin trap and reggaeton. Or Éxitos Mexicanos for the biggest tunes from banda, norteño, and mariachi.
Déjame explicarles un poquito de algo donde soy.
Or Sabor Salsero. Find the right music to relax, unwind, or party this summer season. Search Latin on TuneIn to discover your soundtrack.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And from Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Bob Moon. The closing bell ringing on something of a relief rally for stocks today, specifically the U.S. government's delay of a 10% tariff on some Chinese imports until December 15th. The Trump administration thus sparing U.S. consumers from a rise in prices on products ranging from toys to smartphones as the holiday shopping season approaches. Let's check where stocks are coming to rest right now. The S&P 500 up 37 points, 1.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average higher by 301 points, 1.1%. The Nasdaq up by 152 points, that is 1.9%. As much as stock investors seem to like the administration's decision to back away from some of its planned tariffs, some remain cautious. Kyle Bass is Chief Investment Officer for Heyman Capital. He doesn't see this as a sign that a trade agreement between the U.S. and China is any closer.
I don't think President Trump wanted the price of iPhones to go up going into Christmas. I think it's that simple. I think you're seeing President Trump pull back on consumer goods, but he's letting the tariffs go through on capital goods and intermediate supplies. So this is all about Trump just pulling back, bending to the pressure of U.S. multinational corporations and not bending to the pressure of China.
Among shares seeing the most relief today, Apple surged almost 4.5%. Of course, China is both a key part of Apple's supply chain as well as a major source of its revenue. And Best Buy saw the biggest gain on the S&P 500. Its shares rose 6.5%. 10-year Treasury prices are down 10/30 seconds. The yield at 1.68%. COMEX gold prices lower by 0.2% to $15.14.40 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 3.8% to $57.05 a barrel. Brent crude higher by 4.6% to $61.30 a barrel. I'm Bob Moon, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash.
Your next move will be your last.
Nobody move a muscle. Damn, Stippy, you got to move. And I'm moving on from town to town.
Time is money. Let's go. Come on, move it.
Shake it up. Shake it up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
And it's time to do some movers and shakers. As you just heard from Bob, a largely up day here on the markets. And as I look across the S&P, it looks like just about everything is up. Utilities eking out a gain here. Taylor Riggs just up 0.04%, 0.03% as everything settles out. If we look across the S&P, you had 433 names up, 70 down, 2 unchanged, and it's almost a 180-degree turn from yesterday. Amazing.
Yeah, it is. And you know what's so crazy is 8 a.m. this morning, 9 a.m. this morning, we were looking at a 210 on the 30-year, a 164 on the 10-year, talking about a flattening yield curve, how bond yields were continuing to fall lower to hit record lows that we haven't seen since July of 2016. And then you get a tweet at around 9 a.m. or so, 9:30 a.m., and you're getting now a pretty big lift to yields. You have a 30-year now at a 215. So we're coming off 5 basis points higher. That's a side note. I digress. Bonds are my love. But let's get back to the equity market.
You just can't help yourself. You can't help yourself. You're like, what? Are we talking about things? Let's talk about bonds.
Point here, which it does come back to trade. And all of the best performers today in the S&P 500 all are pretty much led by the chip makers. You have the SOX semiconductor index up 3%. Jason, it is not every day that you see a more than 4% move on a company like Apple, but it is a day like today when you get it. And that's because these Apple iPhones and a lot of the chip makers and devices and hardware are going to get a reprieve on that, going to get us through that holiday shopping season. So no longer a September deadline, but looking at tariffs, maybe not until December 15th. And so this is really giving a lot of these companies a boost today. So you're getting laptops, tablets, MacBook, iPads, iPod, all now getting delayed. So Apple leading the way. You're getting Micron, sort of all of these semantic big chip makers up 4, 5, 6, 7% on the day.
Yeah, it is interesting just to see how much that has rippled through. It's a great story. It's on the Bloomberg today. Hopefully we're going to talk about it a little later in the week. I taped something with Ian King earlier today for our weekly show, and it's about AMD and Intel and sort of that rivalry getting reignited in a lot of ways. AMD seizing on a lot of weakness, candidly, at Intel, some management missteps and some technical missteps at Intel. AMD has been a huge benefactor and a real driver of that gain in the stocks that you've been talking about. And if electronics continue to grow and are going to be maybe less costly than people feared, then we may be in an even better situation for a lot of those names. I do want to mention Facebook, because we had that scoop come out from our Sarah Fryer about folks, contractors listening and transcribing audio recordings. This was one that set your head a-shaking, Taylor Riggs.
Well, it's scary, not only because they're hiring people to transcribe via the Messenger app, but Facebook has faced a lot of controversy about privacy, about antitrust, about why they, should be broken up. And this, again, sort of just hits at more of these privacy issues, scandals that they're going through. Jason, you know that they had settled an FTC investigation on privacy for about $5 billion or so. So again, this just really raises a lot of questions about, I don't want to say the future of Facebook. Facebook will continue to exist, but a lot of concerns then about what the end game looks like for the company.
And it did point me toward another story that we'll talk about a little later in the week for sure, that Sarah Fryer has in the magazine, and that is about how it may, it being Facebook, may take advantage actually of that settlement with the FTC. Let's take a quick look at the VIX. Volatility has been certainly top of mind with the rise today. Volatility down pretty markedly, 14%. The VIX closing at 18.12. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up. Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door. It's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson here with us with a lot of fanfare. I'm not going to mess up, trying to introduce somebody else. He's right here with his stock of the day. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Jason. And I'm here to talk about Covetus. It's a supplier of products, services, and technology to veterinarians. The company combines the animal health unit of dental product supplier Henry Schein with Vet's First Choice, which runs an online pharmacy for animal clinics. Covetus became independent in February after a spin-off and merger were completed. The ticker is CVET, or CVET if you like. The shares set a record at the start of pre-spin-off trading and have worked their way lower ever since. Covetus suffered its biggest ever loss today after the release of second quarter results. Earnings trailed analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Sales missed projections. The company cited slower than expected growth in the U.S. and Brexit-related disruptions in the U.K. Now, Covetus responded to these figures by cutting full-year forecasts. The company now sees sales rising by a low single-digit percentage rather than as much as 5% as previously forecast. The figures are adjusted for deals and currency swings. A profit projection was lowered as well. The results sent shares of Covetus tumbling 40%. They fell to a record low of $12.40 before closing at $13.89.
That is a tough chart to look at because it's like sort of rumbling down and then just drops.
Like a rock.
Like a rock, for sure. All right, great one. Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow with your chart and stock of the day, as well as setting the Business Week agenda, doing so much for us here on Bloomberg Business Week. Well, coming up, we're going to check in with Andy Brown again. He was here with us yesterday, and I have to say, Taylor, what he said was quite prophetic in terms of where things are headed in Hong Kong.
Huge. Well, and love his conversations because he spent time there, so looking forward to that.
All right, first let's get to Martin DeCaro. He's got your world and national headlines. Hey, Martin.
Hello, Jason. The warden of the federal jail where wealthy sex offender Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide has been reassigned. 2 guards placed